I'm not like making any premature conclusions about the shift and what it'll mean for the industry as a whole. Yeah, there's going to be more base hits. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But that necessarily will not lead to a more profound change. I think it will lead to more action and people getting on base, people running. You know, again, I'm fine with it. I understand Joe Sheehan's reasons why he really wants nothing to do with it. Because his whole thing is like, hitters should be able to hit the ball wherever they want to hit it and try to hit it. And if they want to hit the ball hard, if you hit the ball hard, you pull it. If you're a left-handed hitter, you're going to have great success. So why shouldn't a defense, let's pretend it's like an NFL game. Why, if Don Coryell was using all these wide receivers and spreading it out and using this tight end that was not the traditional tight end, who was going to be a pass-receiving threat, right? If NFL defense said, well, we need to stop this because this is something new and we have to account for that. So that's how the nickel and dime defense was invented by Don Coryell, even though he's an offensive guy. You have players, you have talent, you pay them all the money that you do. You should be allowed to deploy them as you wish. Why restrict where they can set up? I mean, there is an unfairness about that, and I get it. But that said, I'm okay with doing this because I'm really curious to see how it's going to work. But there's some guys, and granted, I'm staring at Cardinals mostly, but there's some guys that, to me, it's pretty obvious that they're going to benefit from the removal of the shift. And I said Tommy Edman will be one of those guys in a big way, based on every year that he has played so far. Like the difference with him when he bats left, which is most of the time, because remember, 75% of the plate appearances in Major League Baseball are taken against right-handed pitchers. Tommy's been always pretty damn good as a right-handed hitter, but he's not going to see that many lefty pitchers because there's just not too many of those guys around now. It's changed. So every year in the majors, when the other side's put the shift on him, and I got to give you a fancy pants stat only because it's the only breakdown that's available on StatCast. But when I tell you these numbers, just pretend that it's batting average because it's kind of similar to that, except it's enhanced because it takes into effect like, well, how did you get on base, or what kind of hit did you get? Like a double's worth more than a single, that kind of thing. So anyway, last year when he was a left-handed pitcher, left-handed hitter against right-handed pitchers, they put the shift on him 40% of the time when he was batting left-handed, right? Hardly ever put it on when he was batting right-handed. Anyway, here's the difference. Tommy Edman, again, just pretend this is a batting average because it's easier to understand, and I mean that sincerely. When they had the shift on, when he was batting left side last year, he hit 260. When they didn't have a shift, he hit 345. That's a pretty big difference right there.
Yes,
now, every single season, his numbers are higher. In some cases, like the one I just gave you, much, much higher when there's no shift compared to when there was a shift. But it's a consistent thread throughout his career as a left-handed hitter. Opponents knew this, and every year it seems like they shifted him more often when he was batting left-handed. Some years the difference was rather slight. When I say slight, though, we're still talking about a 15-point difference, as in 301 no shift and 286 with the shift, But in other cases, the gap was just huge, And so Tommy Edman, I can't imagine a scenario where he won't benefit from this because everything tells us his entire career he's always hit much better against with no shift. His batting average, everything else, much higher than when there is a shift. So why would that change? Especially where You can't put a first baseman, second baseman, and shortstop from second base over to first. We have 3 infielders when there's a shift. Now you can only have 2. So why wouldn't that help them?
I think it definitely will. It makes me. You and I haven't talked a lot about this because there's only been a couple games, but all of a sudden it starts to make me think, well, heck, if it's that pronounced, Tommy Edman should be batting leadoff every day. We can start that debate. Who should be here and where and there? The guy can get on base. We just talked about his stolen base opportunities, and he could be, again, we've seen it from time to time, but he can be even more effective than he has been in the past, which I think we all agree he's been very significant since he's come here and taken opportunities. I mean, he's taken the second base job. Now he's taking the shortstop job. So,
last season, opponents put the shift on Lars Nootbaar, who bats left, hitting to the right side. They put the shift on him 53% of the time. He hit, 66 points higher with no shift as compared to shift. So again, if there is such a huge, huge difference in his performance, shift or no shift, now that shifts have been outlawed, obviously he should have more success as a hitter, and I think he will, at least when he hits the ball on the ground. But that doesn't tell the whole story, because you won't be able to play. They gotta have their feet or 1 foot anyway in the infield dirt. You can't put that guy out in short right field and use him as an extra outfielder. And I think a guy like Nootbaar hits a lot of line drives. I think that worked against him to an extent. I think it did cost him hits, right? I can't quantify it, but
right. No, I agree with that.
All you got to do is look at this is WOBA, 378 with no shift last year. I mean, it's another example. There are other Cardinals. I mean, I could go through this whole thing. The Cardinals actually have a few candidates that are pretty glaring, the way they stand out when they've hit with no shift. Logic tells you're going to see them do even better now. So, anyway, I mean, I'm just passing this stuff along.
Texter sends in a question here. Bertie, do you think there's too many rule changes and turns this thing into a joke offensively?
No, not at all. Because offense has been going down and down and down, and I don't think this stuff, inflates offense beyond reason. I mean, last year we saw. I can look this up, but it's getting late in the show. But last year's like the lowest batting average, in a very, very long time. I think it was like 241 or 240 or something. And so, if getting rid of the shift means that the entire major league average is going to get back over 250, 252, 255, I don't think that's too much offense. I just think it's balancing things out the way it used to be, which I think is good, because pitchers with the high strikeout rates, and whoever texted me, please understand that. I mean, the strikeout rate goes up and up and up and up every year. It's amazing. So there are fewer batted balls in play than ever, like in 2022. And that's a fact, because hitters were striking out so much because of their own imperfections, but mostly because a parade of guys who can throw 98 are coming at you for 9 innings.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to balance that out? In other words, the pitcher can still strike these guys out, strike them out 3-4 times a game, whatever. But when a dude against a great pitcher, actually connects, puts the ball on play, does his job, hits the ball square on the nose, and the other dugout's got 3 players in that area to take that hit away from him, you're penalizing a guy for doing his job, which is to make hard contact. If he's a left-handed hitter, hit the ball hard, right side, if that's what he does best, why would you want to penalize him? See, I kind of turned the argument around. We live in a strikeout crazy environment in baseball, and that's not going to go anyway soon. So I'm just asking as a fan, and I mean this sincerely, don't you want to see the ball in play more? I mean, after a while, yeah, if it's your pitcher, you love the strikeouts. I get that. I do too. But do you really want to watch 9 innings of strikeout, ground ball into the shift? Side is retired. Strikeout. Fly ball to right. Side is retired. Do you really want to watch that for 9 innings? I don't.
It does get tiresome. I know. I want to say it was Commish was on, and recently on one of the conversations you were having with him, and we're talking about rule changes with the shift and this and that, and he just flat out said, "Hey, it'll be the return of the single. Won't that be nice?"
Yeah. Well, no, it's going to be. The singles are going to go up a lot. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, singles are good. Again, more activity on the bases. We were talking about base stealing earlier. You get guys on first with something besides a walk. That's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, let me find something here, and again, I can dig it up, but I didn't know we were going to talk about this. But it's actually a really good conversation, and it's important, and I'm stimulated because with that text message, which I thought was great, because I like to kind of dig into this stuff. My curiosity kicks in. Let me find this because it's only going to. I keep saying it's only going to take me a minute, but it really is only going to take me a minute. So just give me. I wrote something that Scoops with Danny Mac, but I was laughing at one of the things I found. So this is sort of in a way a response to the gentleman who said, "Well, you change your rules too much. It's going to be too easy to do this, too easy to do that." All right, so here we go. Let me find it. It's so bad.
Okay.
It's so bad. But if you look at here we go. Major League Baseball teams set a record in 1987. They combined for 3,588 stolen bases. It was the highest total during the post-expansion era, which began in 1961. So anyway, but in 2022, last season, there were 2,486 steals. Now, I did the math for you because it was part of something I wrote at Scoops with Danny Mac. So last season, compared to 1987, when more stolen bases were, in play, or more stolen bases happened than any point since 1961. That happened in 1987. Last year's total stolen bases, 1,099 fewer steals than 1987.
That's a lot.
In 2022, teams averaged they attempted per game 0.67 steals per game last year. In 1987, when the stolen base was at its prime, they averaged 1.21 steals attempted per game. That's a difference of 45%. So if what you're saying is like, well, it shouldn't be, you don't make it easier for them now, they got to earn it or whatever. I mean, and I swear, I'm not saying this to be a smart aleck. I swear I'm not. But I got here in time, not for 1982, but shortly thereafter, and there was nothing more exciting or energizing in terms of Cardinals fans being pleased and happy and excited than watching Whitey Herzog baseball being executed and them stealing bases all the time. And you know what? They made it look easy. I didn't.
Yeah, they did.
I don't remember anyone complaining here about that. In fact, I've spent much of my life covering and writing about baseball in St. Louis, and this is not a knock, where people, even now, you hear the people mourn the loss of Whitey ball and the way the game was played back then. Well, with these rules, you're not going to get back to 3,588 stolen bases, but you're going to have more action, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that includes singles now that normally were getting caught by these three fielders on the right side.
The guy playing in short right field. You're going, wait a minute, that's the third baseman over there right now. Yeah.
I want to see hits. And by them removing the shift, it's not like major league players, or you're making it easier to steal bases, or at least you're giving them more aggressive, to be more aggressive about trying to steal bases. So if the stolen base count goes way up this coming season, I don't know if it will, but maybe by 20% or so, 25%. And if some of these balls that are going into the shift net in recent years, even though the hitter did his job, I know on the other hand, like Brendan Donovan, you can actually hit it the other way, and that's one of the things I admire about him. But you know what my point is.
Yeah.
But anyway, if the number of singles go up, which means, hey, guy got a hit, people applaud, he's on first base, now will he steal? If all this works out, where you're going to have this dramatic increase in singles and you're going to have a pretty significant increase in stolen bases, you're not going to see Major League Baseball, like all teams combined, all of a sudden they go from hitting 241 to 311. That ain't going to happen. They may go from 241 to 251, and that's not exactly an eruption of offense. It's actually just starting to balance it out a little bit, because it went too far the other way. And baseball has always done pretty well about correcting that. And if the stolen bases go up, by 20%, 25%, it's not like major league teams as an industry are now suddenly going to average 5 runs a game, 5.5 runs a game. Instead of averaging 4.4, they may average 4.6, 4.8. So how does that make it too easy? I don't think it does at all, with all due respect.
For me, I just, like you said, I just want to see a little more activity. It gives me something else to keep an eye on. Yeah, I'd love to hit the ball far. I love that. When a guy comes up, we see.
And that still will happen.
And it will. But you know what? When you got a guy on base and you're going, hey, let's see how he affects things. You got guys moving around if a guy takes off for second. You got the defense shifting. You just see more movement, especially if you're at the ballpark. You're going to get to see all the different movement of each player. Maybe a guy was cheating this way. Oh, I got to get back and cover the base now because the guy's trying to steal a base. It just makes the game more, just gives it more action. That's the bottom line here. I missed that. I was like you, Bernie. I got to see it, and like for younger fans, when I describe it to them, I said I don't want a deal where you get a single and it's an automatic steal, but when you do get to see how the game is affected by somebody who can potentially steal a base, it just gives you more to keep an eye on. And to have younger fans not be able to appreciate that the way it used to, or not say the way it used to be, because that makes me sound old, but to see how that affected the game, and you can combine that with hit the ball far and get me some doubles and get me some more walks, just makes for a better game. You include more to it.
The game needs action. I mean, for years we've all been whining or complaining that as much as we love baseball, there's just not enough going on. Mm-hmm. It's either a home run derby or now, I mean, strikeouts going up and up and up and up every year. There's just a lot of sitting around, waiting and hoping something is going to happen. The hit and run has gone not entirely away. The hit and run, the usage of the hit and run, which is one of the most exciting plays in baseball, where you got everybody in motion. That has decreased dramatically through the years. So this is gonna, in addition to some of these rules will increase the stolen base count. Some of these rules are also going to make it. It's going to compel managers to put more hit and runs on, the way it used to be. And who doesn't want to see that? I mean,
there's a little strategy if you're a left-handed hitter, and
it's more strategy, right?
There goes the runner. Shortstop takes off, and if you're the guy, the left-handed hitter, you're going, slip it through the hole. Just pop it through the hole there out in the left field, and you got your guy on third base, first and third. We got something going.
Hey, closing note on this. Back in 1987,
mm-hmm.
Vince Coleman led the majors with 109 steals, which is funny in itself to actually remember that happened.
Yeah, it is nuts.
And he was one of 15 players in Major League Baseball. I looked this up last week, put all this together. He was one of 15 players in 1987 that had at least 40 steals, right?
Okay.
15 players had at least 40 steals. Last season, the dude from the Marlins, you say, is it Bertie or John Bertie?
Bertie.
Berti. People know who he is. It doesn't matter anyway. He led the majors with 41 steals. He was the only guy in the majors that had at least 40 steals. And only 5 other players had as many as 30. So if you add it up this way, back in 1987, you had 33 guys. You had 40. No, actually, I was going to miscalculate. You had 15 plus 18. You had 33 guys steal at least 30 bases. 33 guys steal at least 30 bases. And you know how many guys stole at least 30 last year? 6.
Yeah.
So if that kind of baseball was popular and unique and different in the very best of ways, what's wrong with trying to balance it out a little more to where you put that action back in the game? And you're not going to get back to 1987 levels. It's not going to suddenly make a mockery of it. I just don't know how anybody could enjoy the kind of baseball. Generally speaking, there's some really great games during the year. Don't get me wrong. But just generally speaking, the game has not been as enjoyable for a while. And they're putting the fun and the excitement and the action back in it. And I don't think they're doing it in a way that, bastardizes the game. I really don't.
Oh, no. I mean, if we could get 1 or 2 guys in the game that could steal bases, not like Vince, but let's just say he could steal 50 to 60 a year. It would be exciting. I also look at it this way. That's 50 or 60 doubles. That's the way I look at it, too.
Yeah.
I mean, add that to your game. It's just more options. Makes it for exciting. It would be better. I'm hoping it works out this year.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun to just sort of look at this and think that, we might see guys, a couple guys a year stealing 50 or more and maybe more stealing 40.
Yeah.
But how, why would that be like offensive or anything? Because, 1987 wasn't just 1987. I mean, the whole 1980s, everybody was running. It was fun baseball.
It was.
So why wouldn't we want to bring some of that back? Not to that extent, but more of that. That's fun, entertainment, excitement. Is he going to go? Is he going to beat this catcher? That stuff's classic.
Agreed. We're biased to the Cardinals, but I'll even go back. That Mets team, they were like the combination more of what we could see in this era, because they could hit the ball, they could hit for doubles, they could run, they could do a lot of things well. They got beat out by the Cardinals. That was a Mets team during that 80s run that they were exciting because they had all the elements that I think would be great to see in today's game if we could get to that point.
Yeah, back in the decade of the 1980s, this came from MLB.com. Major League teams stole an average of 2.27 steals per game. And that was the height of base stealing mania. So if you're thinking about it this year, now granted, that doesn't take into account the attempts. And teams were not as proficient about stealing bases successfully. They got thrown out too many times, but at least they were trying, which gave it action, gave baseball real boost of action. So in the 1980s, teams averaged 2.27 steals per game. You know what that average has been in this decade so far? 1.25. So I would offer this. If the peak of base running mania was averaging about 2.27 steals per game, again, many more attempts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the average number of steals goes from 1.25 steals per game, and it gets up back to over, nearly like 2.3, 2.4 steals per game, is that really a radical transformation? No. Is that cheapening the stolen base and making it easier? No. You're kind of normalizing things a little bit. And again, those stolen base averages may seem really small because we remember all the bases that were stolen because I just gave you the numbers. In 1987, there was a lot of other years where the total was really, really high. But you also need to factor in the number of attempts because you had people on the move a lot. So if we can get a little bit closer, if we can kind of meet halfway on this, like in other words, you're going to have more action on the bases, more people trying to steal, more people wondering if is this, oh man, that catcher's got the best arm in the business.
Yeah,
is this guy really going to try? You can sit there and you can talk strategy and everything else. And that's part of baseball's charm too, being able to talk about what would you do here? What would you do here? Well, you turn to your friend or, your better half or your son or your daughter. What do you think he should do here? I'm probably exaggerating this, but how many times compared to the 80s, even the 90s, how many times now do we have those conversations where they used to be, those conversations would happen like 3-4 times an inning sometimes. How many times now do we have those conversations during the game? Because, well, what would you do? I don't know. I mean, this pitcher's going to strike him out. So what do you mean? I don't know. What is he supposed to do? Pitcher's going to strike him out. And then the next guy might strike out. Maybe about 2 out of every 5 guys against his pitcher is going to strike out. The ball won't even be in play, let alone stealing a base. So that's not a bad thing. I want to have those conversations again.
It'll be fun.
This is what I would do. You think he ought to run? You think he ought to try him? Hey, what about the hit and run? When do we even talk about the hit and run? The last 3 years.
Oh, I can't. I don't even think it's ever crossed my mind because I just go, yeah, that's not happening. I don't even consider it anymore.